Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. For our service today, we want to dedicate the service to Bob Seen Jr. Bob, as many of you know now, passed this past week, and Bob is the co-founder of Now Creations. Without Bob's foundational work and continued support, Now Creations would simply not be here today. Just a joy to have had Bob's presence with us, and we continue to experience his presence with us as well. Calling hours is this afternoon here in Youngstown, with a funeral service tomorrow morning at noon at St. Charles in Boardman. May Bob's life here on earth be so much appreciated by all of us, and especially may the continuity of his life be enjoyed by him as well as by us. Also, I want to mention, if you're able to join us, we'll be having the New Earth tonight by Eckhart Tolle from 6 to 7:30. And also Monday night, we'll be doing our invocation to the unified chakra. Very, very, very powerful. Just encourage you to join us if you can. Today's teaching is somewhat simple, but profound. It's a good talk. It's important for all of us. Let's begin. My dear friends, it continues to be a great joy to greet you in these Sunday services, and especially to witness the spiritual growth that so many of us are making. It is precisely this continued growth that I would like to focus in today's teaching entitled Valuing the Valuable. Let me just repeat the title. Valuing the Valuable, learning to develop the consciousness skills, learning to develop the consciousness skills that are based on our spiritual awareness that we then are able to put into our daily practice, and in so doing, raising the quality of our everyday lives in happiness and joy. I will begin with a little something that we all know, then proceed to something that I had been doing that didn't have the words for, and then focus on those words. And then lastly, 3 techniques for helping us to make the valuable very valuable in our lives. Let's begin with something that we all know. We especially know this in the developing of a new skill in which we want to grow. In such developments, whether it's regular physical exercise or just developing a new mental skill, again and again, we have heard the adage, practice makes perfect. You have so repeatedly done this in your own particular life when you have developed a skill. And then, of course, once you have practiced it and have perfected it, have acquired it, you then continue to utilize it. And then as you continue to utilize it, it obviously raises the quality of your everyday living. With this notice of practice making perfect, let me now address something that I felt that I was doing recently that I didn't quite have the right words for. Recently, I had been working on the phrase, spend less time doing and more time being. Spend less time doing and more time being. By this, I meant that whenever you have free time, and probably all of us have an abundance of free time, that we should do something that is more spiritually growthful, rather than simply looking for more things to do to fill up our time. That hopefully we would spend a little more time to be quieter, to go within, and to focus on that spiritual presence at the very center of our beings. And I personally have been doing this in my free time, and I have a lot of free time. In my free time, I did not look for more things to do, but I just used the time to be more, to be more, to be quieter, to be more inner directed, to absorb more, and to feel that presence within me. And I'm happy to say that as I did so, I was improving. I noticed the uplift in my life. But I also knew that something was still missing. While the words do less and be more were helpful, they just didn't say enough about the more practical things in my life. What to do or not to do, how to be more. Again, the words do less and be more, they were helpful, but something for me was still missing. And then 2 weeks ago, when we were doing our weekend enrichment class, I finally found those words that made the phrase do less and be more practical. It should not surprise you where I found the material. We were reviewing A Course in Miracles in our study, and these words just popped out at me. Of course, I knew the words as soon as I heard them. They just made such sense to me. They clearly and forcefully spoke to me. The words from lesson 133 were these: I will not value what is valueless. I will not value what is valueless. These words, I will not value what is valueless, were exactly what I was feeling in the phrase, do less and be more. But the words, I will not value what is valueless, were so much more practical. For me, they were so much more down to earth. I'll explain that in just a moment. And yet, as practical as were the words, I knew that I had some more work to do, work that I would like to encourage you to do as well. If you understand the spiritual importance of these words, not to value what is valueless, if you understand that they will help you do less and be more, then I encourage you to do the work. Do the work in these 3 very practical steps that I will now suggest to you. Step 1. My first step was to look at my life and find out what was valueless. Things that I regularly did in the past, but now they really had no real meaning for me. This was quite a revelation to me. I clearly found that many things that I did regularly from the past were just that. They were just past habits. Past habits that really didn't have any present value. It was like I just did them because I'd always done them. This reevaluation of my past habits was both easy and helpful to me. It was easy for me because one of the 7 habits of highly effective people presented by Stephen Covey, the 3rd habit, quickly came to mind. Covey's 3rd habit was to put first things first. And he cautioned us that we should not major in minors. It's a good phrase, not to major in minors, insignificant things, which meant we would be wise if we spent a lot more time dismissing the things that are unimportant, valueless, and do the things that are really important, things that are valuable. It was a good reminder for me. The words were also helpful because they enabled me to see that many of the things, perhaps this would apply to you too, that many of the things that I had done or valued in the past were developed, listen closely, in the game of separation. Many of the things of my past I saw were developments from the game of separation. They were kind of like rewards, compensations for the work we had done just to keep our heads above water. It was like we deserved these things for just keeping our lives together. Now, I am not here to tell you what you should or should not do, but I am here to tell you that I found many things in my life, in my past life especially, that had become valueless. Just many things going on I just found were valueless. I just did them because I'd always done them. They weren't bad, they weren't harmful, they were just valueless. They just didn't hold any value. Now that I had come to value my spiritual awareness more and more, things had changed. I had changed. My values had changed. And I was happy to no more value the valueless. Again, I knew what was now valueless in my life. And I invite you to take a look at yours, to see maybe that it's just time to move beyond, not things that were so much terrible, but rather just have become valueless. And you're ready to set them aside. Step 2. As I began to stop valuing things that were less valuable to me now, I quickly noticed that I had more time to value what was important. Strange how that works, huh? When you stop wasting time with valueless things, when you stop majoring in minors, you have more time and can give more attention to major in majors, the really valuable things in your life. But I must say that I was surprised. I was really surprised at what happened to me. Let me explain. As I spent more time taking care of the things I truly value, and again, my list might be quite different than yours, although I would not be surprised if we had the very same thing at the top of our list, namely, taking care of yourself, with a special emphasis on doing your daily spiritual practices. That's probably at the top of most of our list. But what really surprised me were 2 things. The first one, again, pleasantly surprising me, was the uplift I felt in my life. Let me repeat this. As I focused on doing the things that I felt were valuable, I noticed the uplift in my life, in my daily living. I noticed how much better I felt. There was a clearly noticeable sense of feeling good, of being more present, more and more during the course of the day. You know that feeling, a little nicer smile on your face, greater bounce in your step, and just that greater sense of being genuinely present within your own heart space. These are things you can't fake. There was just this uplift. But you also notice where they're coming from. You also notice that they were occurring from within me. And I had a greater sense of who I was as I spent more time valuing the valuable. And then I remembered. The teaching that your thoughts, emotions, and your actions are recorded in your mental, emotional, and physical bodies. This is exactly what was happening to me. As I changed my attention from the valueless to the more valuable, I clearly felt the difference within myself in my recordings, my new recordings. This is a big point. It was like I became my own living example of this truth. I began to realize that what was really happening was that I was changing my habits, my old habits, which were good at the time, but now no longer served me. They had lost their energy. I really didn't want to do them. They didn't have their oomph behind them. But replacing them, replacing them with my new valuable habits was exactly what I needed. And again gave me such a wonderful uplift, a very pleasant surprise. But there was a second surprise. One I had not anticipated, that it really is so valuable. Again, let me explain this second surprise. In fact, it had an additional surprise to the surprise itself. Please follow my thinking. As I began to value the more valuable things in my life, as I mentioned, I did feel the uplift that I just described to you, and it was wonderful. But this second surprise was even more. As I focused on what was really valuable to me, a large part of it was my spiritual life, as I'm sure yours will be for you. I witnessed that I was becoming more me. Let me say it again. As I focused on the more valuable things in my life, especially my spiritual practices, I felt that I was becoming more me. I felt and continue to feel the presence of that God spirit within me that was much more me than the old me, who was still putting too much attention on valueless things in my life. On several occasions, I just sat down and I said to myself, Vince, do you know what's happening to you? Do you understand what's happening to you? You are becoming more of who you are meant to be. You're truly becoming more and more as you were created. Well, I felt more loving, I felt kinder, I felt stronger. I felt that I was in the flow of life and still am because I put more emphasis on the things that really do matter. Or I might use these words, I just started doing the things that were truly valuable in my life. I had not anticipated the spiritual evolution that was now joyfully apparent. And as I continue to value the valuable more and more, I begin to feel more and more that I am becoming more and more of who I am. This was a pleasant uplift, and it was a feeling of an undeniable something within me that clearly stated to me that, well, if I continue to value the valuable, that wonderful spirit within me will continue to emerge from the very center of my being. When I stopped valuing the valueless and focused on doing those things that are really valuable, especially to my spiritual growth and development, I was pretty happy. I was uplifted. I was becoming more of who I am. But there was a surprise to the second surprise. This really surprised me. The more that I began to feel who I truly am, the more I wanted to spend more time with who I am. Let's say that again. The more that I became who I truly felt myself to be, the more I wanted, didn't have to, I wanted to spend more time. And the more time I began to feel who I truly was, it was so much easier to move beyond the old things that had no value. If anything, these old things were almost like distractions that I was now happy to move beyond. I sincerely felt the growth that was occurring within me and has continued to occur as I laid aside what no longer spoke to me and more embraced the valuable things, primary of which is the Holy Spirit at the center of my life. And of course, I was able to bring this newer energy into all of the daily activities with which I'm engaged. I am simply suggesting that you might have the same experience as you lay aside the value list. Not that they're bad, they're just valueless now. The valuable will become clearer and clearer to you. I believe that you will have more joy than you've ever had. I believe you will become more you than you ever knew yourself to be. You will feel it, you will live it, and you will love it as you begin to be that conscious divine self that you were meant to be. There's more. And then the third step. The third step. You ready? The third step arose very quietly. It rose from the stillness within me. It arose from that inner place. And it had such conviction, such depth to it. It became a no-brainer, something I didn't have to think about. It just was intuitive. It was just there. As I valued the valuable within me, which for me became my conscious Holy Spirit, when I valued the valuable, I felt myself absolutely devoted to it. When I valued the valuable, the conscious Holy Spirit presence within me, I became absolutely devoted to it. It was the real me that has all the answers that I need in life. This devotion, what I wanted to do to the Holy Spirit's presence within me, began to be more and more the place from which I functioned. More and more did I feel one with it. More and more did it become, well, my identity. More and more did it guide my expressions. At first, the little me was kind of almost overwhelmed by this until I began to see that little me was being raised to be a Christ in the modern world. All of this kind of happened because I began to understand the importance of not valuing the valueless, but rather valuing now those valuable things, being surprised by how much they uplift you, and becoming devoted to their guidance, happily, joyfully, in all that we do. In conclusion, I usually do not share so much of my personal feelings with you, but I felt in today's teaching it was warranted. I had to tell you the effectiveness of valuing the valuable. The teaching of learning to value, not the valueless that continues to pass, but rather that valuable, eternal presence within you, and to bring it into your daily living is such a practical and uplifting energy, which each of us is quite capable of achieving. Just take a good look at your life now. Set aside just what doesn't serve you. Focus on what you consider to be valuable. And see that in doing so, you will be uplifted into a greater life experience. And yes, of course, we'll do this work on valuing the valuable together, knowing that at the very center of each one of us is that beautiful, powerful, loving Holy Spirit of God, the focus of all value. Let me now take you into meditation, and what a joy it is to do so. Let's begin by simply being happy. I kind of feel that that's what we all are right now. We're just happy. Just happy. In today's teaching, there is just that internal joy that has been struck within each one of us. Again, you don't have to fake it or try to contrive to get it. It's just there within you. You're probably internally beaming right at this moment. Perhaps beaming with Bob as well. It's just a matter of setting aside a lot of stuff that they're just old habits. Not bad, just old. They were the old you, the before you left the game of separation you, and just no longer are the now you. So let me suggest a movement forward for you. I would not suggest that you sit down and make a list of all of the things that are now valueless. That'll come in due time. I would suggest that you sit down and make a list of the things that are valuable. Just make a list of the things that are valuable. You know what's valuable in your life. See, as you spend more time on the things that are valuable, you see much more clearly the things that are valueless. Why am I doing this? Oh, because I've always done it. Oh, focus on the valuable. Okay, let's put it to the test. You know our threefold test by now. Does it make sense? Is it logical to focus on what's valuable? I think that's a no-brainer. Secondly, does it feel right? I bet you're smiling and you just think about those things that you're going to focus on. Yeah, of course it feels right. But here's the point. Does it work every time? So let's focus on this. If you focus more on doing what's valuable, will it give you an uplift in your daily living? That's really important. If you do it, will you become better than you were? So you have to do it. That's where you get the uplift. Be more, be more, do less, do less. And then that second surprise, not only is it an uplift, that as you continue to be uplifted, it should not be surprising that you want to spend more time on what you consider to be valuable. Somewhere along the way, it will become what you want to do. Why would you not want to do what is valuable? Get rid of the old stuff. It just doesn't work for you. Focus on the valuable. And notice that bigger smile, kinder, nicer, bouncing your step. I will not value what is valueless, but I will value what is valuable. And then, would you become devoted to it? Would you become devoted to what you understand to be valuable? Just notice the energy rising up within you as soon as I ask this question of you. Notice the energy that just came. Will you be devoted to what you see as valuable? You can't fake this, but you can feel it and you know it. Be devoted. be devoted. And may I invite you at this time, before we conclude our meditation, to individually and as a group, extend our loving energy to Bob, just enjoying the energy, the exchange, knowing that he is alive and well as we are. And may we lovingly, joyfully share that energy with him. Spiritual friendships. One of the things that is quite valuable let me invite you now to return to your breathing. And notice how happy you feel. Just happy, happy. It's what happens when we do less and be more. And let me invite you to gently breathe your eyes open. Still being happy. Joining with Bobby and all of us here this morning saying, I am an eternal being of light and love. Thus, only good can come to me and only good can come from me. And we are eternal beings of light and love. Thus, only good can come to us and only good can come from us. Namaste.